would that be worth that to them if they could then get that kind of outcome? Of course it would be. You go $20,000 and now they're going to have millions of dollars more and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year more. Of course that's worth it. And so it just sort of helped me realize that what you've got to focus on when you're putting your product or offer together is, what is the outcome that I'm creating for my client, and how valuable and meaningful to them is that outcome?
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am so excited to talk about a topic that so many of us shy away from as entrepreneurs, trying to figure out the right systems and strategies to make sure that we have cash flow, that we can pay ourselves our worth in our businesses, and that we're also keeping enough money in our businesses to not go out of business, and many, many other things that we're going to unravel a little bit today. Phil McGilvray, you are a profit and cash flow strategist, and your entire career, it looks like, has been in finance, although you went to school for health sciences.
Yes.
Is there a story there?
Oh, not really. Look, my grandma taught me to budget when I was 18 years old. You can see behind me on the shelf there, using physical glass jars and physical money. And that was she taught me that as a teenager. And I was on a gap year over in the UK, and I was earning £15 a week. And, and it wasn't a whole lot. They did feed. I was working on an adventure training camp, and they fed me and they gave me accommodation, but the £15 a week just didn't seem to go far enough. So grandma sat me down with the glass jars and literally taught me how to budget. And when I came back to Australia, I had the privilege to be able to teach friends and family and people we went to church with and those things how to budget. And so that was something I've been doing since 18 years old. But my first career was as an occupational therapist, and which I absolutely loved. But back then, once you started to move up the ranks in occupational therapy, it became more about bureaucracy rather than actually hands-on working with patients and clients. So at the right time, it just happened that someone from our church was a financial advisor, and he saw all the stuff that I was doing with people, helping with. He said, "Hey, would you be interested in becoming a financial advisor?" So that's how it happened.
Wow, amazing. And so you went from financial advisor and planner to coach and educator. Going back to your grandmother, money skills for life in grandma's jars. I love that. And then evolved from there to doing what you do now. You've written a book. And
Yes.
May I say, think that I was going to get into this so early, but you have this offer for your book, Profitability, that comes with bonuses and a digital audio version, and it's a really great price. So definitely going to link that as one of our links. Again, I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but I just thought that was such a great tool that you're giving to people to learn your systems, even if they don't work with you outside of that, right? Or maybe they go through your system and they say, okay, how can we work together further?
Yeah, that's right, Anika. Look, as I said, I became a financial advisor, but along the way, I was still at home, weekends, evenings, teaching people how to budget, get out of debt, manage your money, those sort of things. And it's always been something that I'm very, very passionate about. And I got to this point in my business where I ultimately became a partner in Australia's leading stockbroking financial planning firm, and earning more money than I could ever imagine doing that. But I really felt a calling at that point to go, no, this isn't what I want to be doing. This isn't at the heart of what I'm really passionate about. And so at that point, walked away from a 7-figure income to focus on teaching the financial basics. And that was like, I agonized over that decision for 18 months, as you can imagine. But for me now, it is about impact. It is about helping people make a big difference in the world. And, entrepreneurs, I really believe, are the givers of this world. They're the people that actually have a heart to make a difference, to help others with what they do. Now, of course, there's those people out there that are just in it for themselves. But your average entrepreneur just wants to do something they believe in and love. They want to do something that makes a difference, and they want to, have time freedom and those sorts of things. But so as I stepped into this entrepreneurial world of building my own business around finance, I realized that most entrepreneurs, in fact, 8 out of 10 fail within 3 to 4 years. And I was in masterminds, and I had people coming to me and asking me questions. And just last night, in fact, I was on a mastermind, and there were people asking me these questions that I didn't even know, And I thought that there's such a need here. None of us have been taught the basics of finance. And unfortunately, because of that, we all walk around with this shame that we don't know how to manage our money or make good decisions, but no one's ever taught us. And the sad thing is we think that everyone else knows, has got it together financially. You know, we walk around as if everyone else knows, and we're the only one that doesn't. So no one wants to talk about it. And so, you know, the reality is I'm just trying to bring it to the fore and say, hey, look, here's a book. People could just follow the book. I'll give you to, I don't know if I've already given you it in the pre-notes, but there's a link to a very, very simple training on, well, what are the 5 numbers that entrepreneurs need to know? And so there's a training and a resource that goes with that that's completely free for anyone that wants that. And that is a starting point. You know, forget all the complicated stuff, just 5 numbers that we need to know. And so there's a training there that people can access and have and use.
Fantastic. Yeah. And even when you get your MBA, you're not learning about the things you need to know as an entrepreneur. You're learning about how to put together numbers for enterprise organizations for the most part, or maybe small to medium-sized businesses, but not the smallest of the small, you know, the 20 million, 50 million, hundreds of millions up. So it's really interesting to think about that. Why aren't those available? Because we know that we're not getting the education we need in the younger years of schooling. Yeah. So it makes it really difficult to then get over if you have money blocks, if you have fears, doubts. If this is something you don't know, but you know you want to start a business, this is, I think, where a lot of people fail. A lot of businesses fail.
It is. And, you know, like you were talking about the money blocks there, this is like, if you'd asked me 10, 15 years ago, would I be, because I'm not a woo-woo kind of guy, you know, obviously being a numbers guy, I'm fairly logical, fairly sort of left brain. But, you know, the more that I work with people, and particularly entrepreneurs, the money, the mindset side of things is really important. And there's so many lies we walk around telling ourselves every day that, you know, as we know, the words we use really then do dictate the thoughts that we think. And I do think that money isn't actually that hard. And so whenever I work with anyone, we first sort of just sit down and go, well, what are the lies that we're telling ourselves? And actually bring those into the light, because once we bring them into the light, we can actually realize that, oh my gosh, that's just such a silly thing to think, you know, and sometimes they're deeply ingrained. But when we can turn that around, then we can you'll start to realize that actually money itself is not that hard. Like the fundamentals of running a successful business. And I'm talking like, I deal mainly with, you know, your mum and dad, solopreneur, mumpreneur, you know, people that family businesses, those sorts of things. But that's where my heart is, not for the big enterprise. So I have worked with, you know, 8, 9-figure businesses, but this is where my heart is. Yeah. You know, the sort of stuff, like you said, the MBA doesn't cover, because at its heart, it's not that hard. And so let's deal with the mindset blocks, but then let's also deal with the basics. And once you got the basics, it's actually pretty easy.
Wow. I love hearing that, because I think, again, we probably overcomplicate it when we're thinking about how to set up systems and processes. And, you know, we're listening to people who, I mean, I think I talk about this a lot on episodes. It's like we all can fall prey to the bright, shiny object syndrome, or this is the system that I use that's worked for me. Well, it might not be the system that works for somebody else or for you personally in your business. Yeah. So you have this concept around becoming the money boss of your business in 2 hours a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to hear this.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to give away the farm, but just...
No, that's fine. And I have no problems with telling people what I do and how I do it. Okay, the idea of a money boss is really just helping people create an identity around who they want to be in regards to their money. So their finances. And so I wish I had actually had it up here, but I've actually got like a money boss manifesto, which is really just to inspire people to say, this is who I want to be regarding finances. I don't want to blame the fact that I wasn't taught about money, or that my parents didn't teach me, or school didn't teach me. I understand that at any age, anyone can learn money skills. So I'm choosing to do that. I don't want to let the banks win and, you know, spend my life in debt to the banks and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. Yeah. I'm going to take control of that and, you know, pay my debt off as fast as I can, so I get to keep those hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's about actually stepping into that identity and saying, actually, this is something that I choose for myself. And it's one of the most, for me, like I actually wrote this manifesto while I was on a bus in Cambodia. In fact, we went to Cambodia. My wife and I are passionate about giving and passionate about supporting causes around the world. And we had 10 days last June, July in Cambodia, and some of that was hair-raising rides for 7 hours on buses through, Cambodia. And I wrote this manifesto while I was over there. And because I wanted people to realize that there is so much power in managing your money well, and the impact you can have on the world is just so huge. And actually choosing to be someone that is good with money, and it's a choice. It's because it's not hard. So the Money Boss Manifesto, the Money Boss is really about, let's create an identity that we can step into and go, yes, this is who I want to be in regards to my money. And then the actual 2 hours a week, like I've got what's called a Thrive. It's called my Thrive framework. And the Thrive framework is very, very simple. T is for transparency, and that is getting absolutely clear on where you're at financially right now, which could be scary for a lot of people, and I understand that. But where am I at right now? And where do I want to be? Like, let's define that. Let's look at that. So many entrepreneurs go into the entrepreneurial world and they're thinking, look, if I could just make $10,000 a month, it'd be great. Or if I could make $20,000, it'd be great. And then all of a sudden we get in this entrepreneurial world and we're being told that, you should grow and you should scale and you should try and walk across this stage and get the 7-figure award. And, and it's like, that's not what I really wanted. I just wanted to be able to spend more time with my family. I wanted to be able to do something I love, and I want to be able to make more money than I could working for someone else. And so let's get transparent on, well, what is it, where we're at right now and where we want to be. And that defines your journey, your entrepreneurial journey in a sense, or defines our financial journey. How are we going to get there? H is then about putting simple systems in place that allow you to harness your cash flow. And these systems, like, they're really, really easy, and like they're color by numbers. It's not you need to know complicated formulas in Excel spreadsheets or anything like that. You don't need to know any financial ratios or any of that sort of stuff. It's just every month I take these numbers and I put it into this spreadsheet, and then I ask myself, what is this telling me? So that's the H for harness. R is for reclaiming your joy. So once we start to see some profits coming through, how do we pay off debt? How do we start paying ourselves a proper salary? How do we, take time off in our business and not stress about the fact we're not there making the money? And then I is about investing back into yourself and into your business so that it can grow and scale sustainably, but it's also investing in your team and giving to causes you care about. V is about vision. So actually creating an overall roadmap so we can see, well, how am I going to get from where I'm at to where I want to be? And then E is the word empire, which is about, well, how do I actually take business success now and how do I use that to actually start creating wealth outside of my business? How do I get my money working for me outside? So that's a process that I take everyone through. And the important bit in there is, I suppose, the H for the harness. And there's just 2 or 3 spreadsheets that I've got that, again, I know people spreadsheets, but they're actually very easy spreadsheets that all you need to do, and it takes me in my business 15 minutes to half an hour to update this spreadsheet every month. And from that, I can clearly see, and all I'm doing in that spreadsheet is I'm tracking 5 numbers in my business. What was my revenue? What did I pay myself as a salary? What are all of my expenses? And that, if you've got a product-based business, you could split that into cost of goods sold, which is like, what did it cost me to buy that product in the first place? And then just on sell. And then you've got your overheads. So that's your expenses. Then the next one is, well, now I can see here's my income minus my expenses. How much have I got left? Okay, I have to pay tax on that. So we have a percentage, we work out a percentage, okay, a percentage that needs to be put aside into my bank account for the tax man. And that's no longer my money. And then the last one is, what have I got left at the end of all of that? What's mine to keep? And that really is, if I was God and I could make it compulsory for every entrepreneur to do something, that would be it. And say, look, spend half an hour a month updating those numbers. And then you can see, like, the number at the bottom is the important one. What do I have left to keep? And then it's about, and the next stage of the process then is, okay, I've got extra money now. How do I use this? And yeah, there's another stage to that, but I'll stop there because I've rambled on quite a bit there. But I hope that makes sense.
I think it's really interesting. And I love the fact that you're offering all of these resources. I mean, that's why, again, I usually don't talk about people's books until later in an episode, but just looking at the website for the book and seeing all of the things that you have to offer, the case studies and testimonials that you've been receiving, over 1,000 business owners and entrepreneurs being helped already, right?
Yeah.
Receiving financial clarity with your systems and processes, and not only having the framework, but then you also have the bonuses, the audiobook, the snapshot tool, the masterclass, and at the audiobook, the, digital book, all of these different things. So many resources that you're offering just from your heart. And
yeah. I'm a
Yeah.
big believer in that, what you give out into the world comes back to you in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, this has always been the way that I've just done things. And yeah, I don't know. I love what I do and I love helping people. So
No,
yeah.
but it's amazing. And I think it's also when you have that heart to give, it actually attracts the right type of clients then that you can work
Yes.
with, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. One of my biggest goals with this is to actually have a group of entrepreneurs that are successful because of applying the principles that I've given them and in some cases work through with them, and then to have 20, 30 entrepreneurs actually come to Cambodia with me in a year's time and actually get their hands dirty, building houses and those sort of things. I think, and then we could have like a little mastermind before and afterwards to make the trip tax deductible. But, like it would, that would bring me the greatest joy to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, if you decide to do it in Thailand, let me know because I'm dual citizen. Yeah. So lots of different countries we can bring this to.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love it.
absolutely. And it may well happen. We've certainly given to projects in Thailand before today. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I want to learn more about that transition from having that seven-figure income. You obviously planned it, right? Because you took 18 months to figure out how you're going to get from there to starting your own business, hanging your own shingle as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I'd like to say it was an easy process and I had it all together and it all went really well. And I can tell you it didn't. It was the complete opposite.
Oh my gosh.
I was horrible. And I talk about this in the book that I knew it all. Well, I thought I knew it all and I thought I was prepared. I mean, 18 months, it was an agonizing decision. Like I stressed about it for 18 months. Should I walk away from a position? Like I was good at what I did. My staff and my team respected me. My clients respected me. I had beautiful clients and so on. And we were giving like hundreds of thousands of dollars to causes that we cared about around the world. And so it was like, it seemed silly to walk away from it. But, there was when we had all of our debt paid off, our mortgage paid off, we always said to the kids, when we've got our mortgage paid off, we're going to take you for a white Christmas in Europe. See, in Australia, you don't have white Christmas. That doesn't happen. And so we said to the kids, when we've got the mortgage all paid off, and we're completely debt free, and we've got all our reserves in place, we're going to take you to Austria for a white Christmas, which we did. Was absolutely amazing. We spent 2 weeks in the UK at this beautiful cottage in the Forest of Dean, and then we went over to we had 10 days in Europe. Spent Christmas right in the middle of the Austrian Alps, and it snowed on Christmas Day. It was just perfect. But while I was there, during those sort of jet laggy moments, I realized that I didn't actually want to go back to life as it was because I was working a very stressful job, as a partner in a stockbroker financial planning firm. And then at nights, evenings, weekends, I was teaching people how to budget, get out of debt, save money, and those sort of things. And I just couldn't go back to that because it was just too busy, it took that breakaway to realize that. And so that started that whole, well, which one do I choose? Do I either give up the budgeting and the money management, the helping families, or do I continue on with the stockbroking and so on? And I think I always knew the answer, but it was just hard to let go of all the benefits of being a partner. And so 18 months took to make the decision. And it took me another sort of 12, 18 months before they actually, it was funny. I said, I'm out of here. But then there was no moves made. Like, it was like, well, we know where to go, Phil. So I actually had to push pretty hard to actually leave. And so, but it took 12 months to handle my clients over and so on and leave. And I thought I was prepared and I went into it, with plenty of savings. But I can tell you, I didn't apply what I was teaching my clients. I blew through hundreds of thousands of dollars in the space of 3 years to try and make it work. I'm not a marketing guy. I'm not very good at putting myself out there. And I absolutely hate the idea that someone would see me as salesy. And I think because of that, I sort of tend to hide in the shadows a little bit. And so it does make it really hard to, as a business owner, if you're not very good at marketing, you're not really keen to sort of talk about or promote yourself a whole lot. And so, yeah, it just became a really hard. I made so many mistakes. I made every mistake in the book. I literally wasted money on coaches, on programs, on, media buyers and Facebook ads and all sorts of things. And, the journey we all go on as an entrepreneur. And I was so ashamed of the situation I was in. And my daughter, she was about 15 at the time. She goes, "Oh, become an entrepreneur, give up the 9 to 5 and start working 5 to 9. And which was absolutely what I was doing, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. And I don't think she she didn't mean it as a nasty thing. It was just how insightful she was as to what had really happened along the way. I didn't pay myself for 3 years. I was wasting all this money. And that was sort of a moment for me where I went, this is ridiculous. And so at that point, I started applying what I teach my clients. I started tracking my income, my expenses, my salary, my tax. And all of a sudden, things I could clearly see what I needed to do. And once I could see what I needed to do, I could see how yucky it was. I faced the reality and started applying what I was teaching. And literally within 2 months, things turned around because I finally knew what I needed to do. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, you were talking about the squirrel, the shiny objects and squirrel syndrome. Or I think that's most entrepreneurs. We throw money at the problem. And so often we also go, oh, this isn't working, so I'll move to this. Oh, that's still not working, I'll move to this. And I just sort of got grounded, figured out what I needed to do and move forward. And sorry, that was a very long answer to your question. But
no, but that's completely valid. I think,
yeah.
One of the things that builds success is consistency.
Yes.
When you're not finding something that's working and you're impatient and you're stressed and you're feeling a lot of angst and you're worried that your business is even going to survive, you don't often, to your point, just stay down the road. You try this and this and this and this and popcorn all over the place.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not to say you don't, like we were chatting before we started recording, about how you're trying new things and you're doing new things to monetize the podcast, like, all podcasters should. And that is, I think you need to find your sort of your road or your direction, but there's always going to be doors that we're pushing on to sort of go, well, does this work? No, that doesn't work. Does this work? No, it doesn't work. This works a bit, and then it's just this constant process of pushing on doors and working out what's going to work for me and how's it going to work. But you often see entrepreneurs making really big moves. It's almost like I started heading in the complete opposite direction. And in my experience, and I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs now, and I've learned so much about what business models work, what business models don't work along the way. But it's interesting that the guys that actually succeed, the guys and girls that succeed, are the ones that just persist. But the key is to get yourself into a financial position so that you have the time and the resources to persist. Too many people run out of money before they ever get to the point of being profitable. If we can just help them get their finances right, then it buys them time to push on the doors and work out what's going to work for me.
Yeah. Even when somebody becomes profitable, they may still look around and go, okay, I'm profitable, but where's my money?
Yeah, well, that's right. And this is where I often have business owners come to me and say, Phil, my accountant said to me, well done, you, pat me on the back and says, well done, Phil, you've made a profit. And I'm sitting there going, well, where's the money? Because it's not in my bank account.
Right.
And that's because, and so, I don't come from an accounting background. As I said, I come from financial advice and stockbroking, where I spent literally hours and hours and hours and hours analyzing different companies' balance sheets and financials just to know, well, is this a company worth investing in? And so very quickly got to learn, well, what are the signs of a healthy business and what not? So I don't come from an accounting background. So the thing is, when your accountant says you made a profit, it's very different to what you and I as entrepreneurs think of as a profit. We see profit as more money in my bank account. Accountant goes, well, here's your income, here's most of your expenses, and then this is what you've got left. But it doesn't include things like, okay, well, what was any big equipment purchases? It doesn't include things like, well, debt repayments that I've made along the way. It doesn't include things like, well, what have you paid yourself? I mean, depending on how you pay yourself, but any drawings you've had to take. It doesn't include the tax you've had to pay, or, VAT or GST or those little extra taxes that get added onto things. It doesn't include any of that. And so that's why our entrepreneurs and business owners get left at the end of the month going, well, where is it? So that's why with the method I teach, it's just about cash flow. Remember, I come from a background where grandma taught me to budget using glass jars. And so I'm just applying the same principles to a business to say, let's just understand the full cash flow picture. Let's add in those debt repayments. Let's add in those equipment purchases. Let's add in the tax you're going to have to pay. Let's add in the drawings you've had to make as a business owner so that we can really see how much you've got. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of cash flow, one thing that you mentioned was that you didn't pay yourself for the first 3 years. I think I've seen that with my own businesses. When I had a PR firm, I paid my employees before I paid myself.
Yeah.
And I would just take whatever I needed to pay my bills, and just the minimum. And then, but you hear from other experts that you should pay yourself first. So I'd love
Yes.
to hear some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, look, and this is true. It was a big mistake for me not to pay myself for those years. And I would say to every entrepreneur, your goal, there are always going to be some expenses that you have to have just to keep the business running.
Yeah.
There will always be those, the essential things. The problem is, as business owners, we're so often taught, oh, well, get your product to a viable so that it's making money and then scale. But what you've got to do before that is your priority needs to be figure out firstly, what is the minimum that you need to pay yourself to make this journey sustainable? And we're not talking about, sitting on a laptop by the beach sort of income. We're talking about what is it like, figure out what are all your household expenses. If you've got a spouse that's contributing or a partner that's contributing to that, okay, well, let's say, your overall budget's $10,000 a month. Your spouse is contributing $5,000 a month. Then you need to fill that gap for $5,000. So we need to know, first and foremost, what is that number? What are those expenses? And most people don't know that they don't know what that is. So let's just start there. And then what we want to do is go, okay, as the business starts to make money, yes, we've got some core expenses that we need to cover in order to make that money in the first place. But then over and above that, what we want to do is gradually start to pay ourselves a salary. So that gap between what we need and what our spouse is paying. And I understand many people don't have spouses, so then it's all on you. But we need to then start gradually paying ourselves an amount. Now, it might not be what you need initially, but each month your goal should be to just try and start to increase what you're paying yourself until you get to the point where that gap's full. And so your household budget is covered. Your goal needs to be this, because if you don't do this, what's going to happen is at some point you're going to run out of cash flow. And we want to be able to buy ourselves as much time as possible to get this working. And it could take years. Some people get lucky and within a couple of months, they've got it sorted. But most people, it's actually a journey of years to get to the point where it's really successful and humming along. So you need to buy yourself that time. So start paying yourself a salary as soon as you possibly can. Start increasing what you're paying yourself every month until you get to that point where you go, great, budget is covered. Now the journey is sustainable. Because the problem is we tend to treat our income in the business almost like monopoly money. It's almost not like it's not real money. Right. And so we will spend in our business on things and amounts of money that we would never dream of spending in our personal account, because it's an investment and it's tax deductible. And, we can tell ourselves all these sorts of lies about it, but every dollar we spend in our business is a dollar we don't get to take home. So I think giving yourself that discipline and going, well, no, the reason this business exists is so that I can do something I love and so that I can have an impact on the world and so that I can pay myself more than I could earning, working for someone else. So I need, first and foremost, after those immediate expenses, I need to get to the point where I'm paying myself a salary.
Yeah. Fantastic. And piggybacking on that, one thing that I think a lot of people have trouble with as well is figuring out how to price. Obviously, if you are selling goods, it may be a little easier. But if you're selling services, how do you make sure you're competitive in the market, but you're also paying yourself enough, or you're asking enough for the value that you're going to bring to your prospective clients?
That is a great question. And I call it pricing for profit. I have like a process that I take all of my clients through. And it is where, again, we sit down and we work out, well, what do I need to pay myself? What are all my expenses within my business? We also factor, well, there's going to be some tax involved in there. Working out what those numbers actually are so that you can then work out, well, what do I actually need to be bringing in revenue so that I've got those things covered? And again, most entrepreneurs never actually take the time to do this, but you can mathematically work out, well, how much do I need to be bringing in so that I've got my salary covered, I've got my expenses covered, I've got tax factored into the equation, and ideally I've also got a profit margin built in there as well. So, and then that will tell us, well, how much revenue do I need to be bringing in? And then we can look over at the product or the offer that we're selling and be going, okay, well, how many of these offers do I need to sell? How many of these products do I need to sell in order to generate that much revenue? And so I go through, like, it's one of the first things that I do with most of the businesses that I work with, just to help them get that clarity. But of course, having we can then go, okay, well, I need to have this amount of money coming in, and therefore I need to charge this much. But like you said, we need to know the market. We need to know, is that even doable? Is that price doable? And a lot of the time, it's actually our own perception of what our product is worth that holds us back. And we make the mistake of actually assigning value to, well, there's this many videos in the course, and there's this many, little other bits that I'm adding in the course. And that's how we assign the value. But that's a really big mistake. What we actually need to be doing is looking at, well, what is the value of the outcome that I provide my clients to my client? Like I'll give you a really quick example. I struggled with this for quite a few years, and I have an amazing friend now and mentor that in New Zealand, and I went and spent a weekend with her, and I remember standing at a whiteboard, and she said, so Phil, if you can help these clients, let's say you can help them increase their income per month by X amount, let's say, and then that's going to be, so they're going to now make $5,000 more profit a month than they have done ever before. And then that's going to grow. And you think about the impact of that, and that the skills and the processes, the systems you've given them is going to apply not just to this month, but to next month, the month after, the year after, the year after. She says, what's that going to be worth to them over 10, 20, 30 years? Right. And it's literally millions and millions of dollars. Like if they apply the system the way I teach it. Wow. And so you go, well, so if you were to charge someone, let's say $20,000, would that be worth that to them if they could then get that kind of outcome? Of course it would be. You go $20,000 and now they're going to have millions of dollars more and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year more. Of course that's worth it. And so it just sort of helped me realize that what you've got to focus on when you're putting your product or offer together is, what is the outcome that I'm creating for my client, and how valuable and meaningful to them is that outcome? Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And that's where I think I was actually just having this conversation earlier today about, we're here as business owners to solve a problem.
Yes.
We need to make sure that we are providing a solution that's going to get somebody relief, more money,
yes.
more time,
yes.
whatever, more visibility, yes. whatever it is, right?
Yep.
So we need to think about things that way. And that's exactly what you're emphasizing, is make sure that we're pricing for the outcome, not just because we are saying, here's what all my features or benefits of this program, right? What is it actually going to do? How is it going to change things?
Yeah. That's right. And then sell that based on that, like just to sell that to the client. And I hate the word selling because I know that's what we do every day, but but to actually help people go, well, yeah, I can solve that problem for you. And to really know deeply what that's going to mean to that client. And if you can get that right, then it's literally life-changing for them. And it brings you so much joy because you know that you've solved a very deep, very real problem for them.
Yeah. Okay, now I want to ask about, you're working 9 to 5, then you were working 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. What does your life look like today?
Oh, a lot different. Yeah, a lot different today. I still work fairly significant hours, but I do it because I love it. And it also works. And my wife and I, every year, our goal is to, not our goal, we do, is to spend a month overseas somewhere. So like last year we did hiking in Norway for a month. And this year we're heading to, and we also went to Cambodia for 10 days last year. And so for now, I love what I do. So I don't work 5 to 9 anymore. I'm pretty much done by 6 p.m. And, I'm up normally at 5 because I'm just an early bird. I do my quiet time for an hour, and then I go for a run, and then lunchtime I can pot around in the garden, for half an hour. And so my time's my own. I create my own schedule, but I love what I do. I don't see myself retiring because I love what I do. But the goal is, every sort of 3 months we go down the coast for 4 or 5 days. And so it's just a really nice balance. It's a really lovely balance. We're not pressured by finances or anything like that, as you would expect. Even though we could spend a lot more, we don't. We don't spend. We're happy. We own everything we've got. We don't have any debt. It's a really lovely lifestyle, and we do what we love to do. And I suspect I've got an oldest daughter who's married. She's 24 now and married, and I expect grandkiddies will be along the way, in a year or two's time. And it'll be nice to have the flexibility to sort of work around that. But we're very close to really what we want life to look like.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's what we all dream of. And I think a big part of what I do when I work with people, in that T for transparency is go, well, forget this whole entrepreneurial, I want to earn $50,000 a month. It's like, really? That, who needs $50,000 a month? Now, I apologize if you want $50,000 a month. But, like for most people, the life that they actually want doesn't require huge amounts of money. And so, for us, it's about, okay, well, we've got surplus money. We're doing stuff around the house. We're investing it, all that sort of stuff. But we're very blessed and thankful for the life that we've got now.
Yeah. Fantastic. Do you primarily work with clients who are in Australia, or has that changed from?
No. Very few clients in Australia. In fact, I've got clients all over the world. So yeah, my mum and dad, I still do a lot of work with mums and dads, people, and that's always just through word of mouth. And so helping them budget. Like I've got my own budgeting software called Grandma's Jars.
Oh.
And so I still do a lot of work with mum and dad, and they're mainly Australian, but most of my business clients are US, UK, Europe are based. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
Oh, fantastic. And you work one-on-one, like you said, you work one-on-one, or you do work in cohorts as well?
Yeah, I actually have I'm moving more towards the group sort of thing. I always had this block about doing group stuff with finances. People go, oh, well, the people want to talk about their finances in a group. But the more people I've worked with, because I do it, I have done plenty of groups in the past, and it works really well because people learn so much from each other. And, as long as you've got a place where people aren't forced to share their personal details, it's actually, people will learn so much from each other about, how does their business work, what's working for them, and so I'm much, much pushing more towards the group type setting. I have a course that I'm about called Money Boss Foundations, which is going to be a 30-day program coming up very, very soon. In fact, I was working on it yesterday, where it is just 30 days to get all the basics set up.
Wow.
So, and just go 30 days, let's get the basics set up. And that's going to be in a group. And the idea of that being in a group is there's accountability, they can share, they can inspire each other. Like part of that is, let's write your mini Money Boss manifesto. What does that look like? Let's deal with the lies that, you're struggling with in your life, and let's bring them into the light, and let's turn them around and turn them into affirmations. But then let's put, the profit snapshot spreadsheet I was telling you about. Expense, what is, your revenue, your salary, your expenses, your tax, and then your profit. Let's put that together. And the goal is then every month after that, for those that want to continue beyond the 30 days, is we provide every month, there will be a couple of workshops where we actually do that all together.
Yeah.
And so they can come together as a time they've assigned for their finances, get it all done. There's the 2 hours for my finances month. It's all done in the group setting. I can ask my questions. I know I'm on top of it, and I can move forward from there. So that's what I'm moving more towards, and more that because I want to be able to travel more. So that would allow me to do that anywhere in the world. And it's more time concentrated to that, just a few sort of calls a week rather than the one-to-one, which can be a lot more. I do a lot of one-on-one, but doing less of it.
Yeah. So will that be on your website soon? Because I'm looking.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. And it's going to be on School. You've probably heard of the School platform, which is so I'll be running that on the School platform. And in fact, if you want, I can put the link to the School platform. It'll be Money Boss Entrepreneur. I can put that. I can give that to you to put in there.
Fantastic.
And I'll talk about that when I'm about to release it. But I'm hoping May. So I think the rest of April I'll get it all sorted, and then May that'll be something that we'll look at.
Okay.
But yeah, there'll be like a one-off fee for that, which won't be huge, but it's just, I'd love to get, 20 people as sort of like case study to just come on board and go, okay, let's try this out. Let's see how this works. Because I think it'll work really, really well. And it'll be a lot of fun for everyone involved. So
definitely. Well, you have so many resources to offer, from the book and the bonus resources there to your new program, to working with people one-on-one or in other group settings. So thank you for giving back so much and really making this a big part of your life. And I love the fact that it's also giving you time for the freedom, flexibility, so that you can spend time with family, you can spend time traveling, volunteering, doing the other things that you love. And that really is the dream for all of us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, you lead by example, and that's what we're trying to do. And anyone can do it. I just think, every business is different, but I've worked with, through the thousands of entrepreneurs. You see different businesses, and anyone can be profitable. It is just like you can engineer your business to profitability, which the word engineer can conjure up all sorts of concerns for people, especially creative people. But you can actually deliberately engineer your business for profitability if you just understand your numbers. So, yeah, look, thank you. It's been great to be here, and you've asked some brilliant questions, which has been really helpful in answering. So thank you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And Phil, I always ask one last question. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
There's a quote by a lady called Megan Orman that says, profit is something you plan for from the beginning and not something you add on at the end. And so I actually like that from a business perspective, because it helps people understand, actually I need to be planning for this from the beginning. And that's what I help people do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure. And I think, this is always coming, every conversation comes at the right time. Being in the United States, there's a lot going on globally with the economy.
There is, yes, absolutely, yes. I've been following the financial markets.
But it's a good time for everybody to reevaluate what we're putting into our businesses, how we're structuring them, how we're looking at our revenue, our profitability, our just financial structures, so that we are continuing to set ourselves up for success no matter what else is going on in the world. So
absolutely.
Really invaluable advice. We'll have links to, usually we try to do one, but you have so much good content. We're going to have links to a few different resources for people in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. And thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it. I hope you got as much value out of the conversation as I did. And I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story, their journey, and some great information for you to make your life and your business a little better every day. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.